from Mission Control Houston, and welcome to Space Station Live. It's Thursday, September 12th, 2013. You're joining us here inside of the International Space Station Flight Control Room, located at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Inside the room right now, the Orbit 2 team on console, monitoring the systems and the astronauts on board the International Space Station. They're being led today by Flight Director Mike Lammers there on the right in the blue. And then speaking to him right now is today's Capcom, David St. Jacques, serving as the communication link between all of our teams down here on the ground and the astronauts up in space. Those astronauts right now, the crew of Expedition 37, in the very early stages of their expedition, since 3 previous crew members just departed earlier this week. On board, NASA astronaut Karen Nyberg, also Expedition 37 commander and Russian cosmonaut Fyodor Yurchikhin, then finally European Space Agency astronaut Luca Parmitano. The 3 have been on board the International Space Station since May 28th, since launching from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, previously part of Expedition 36, now in the second full day of Expedition 37. The crew enjoyed an off-duty day yesterday, but are back at various maintenance tasks and experiment work across the station complex. Starting off with current Expedition 37 commander Fyodor Yurchikhin, who's spending all of his time over in the Russian segment today. On the task list for him is some maintenance on the Russian Electron system, which is one of 2 systems on board the station responsible for generating breathable oxygen for the astronauts and cosmonauts on board. He'll also be doing some work with a number of experiments, doing some startup work on a few. One of them being the Russian Matryoshka experiment, named after the famous set of Russian nested dolls. It's a radiation experiment study that uses a series of sliced dosimeters in a mannequin-sized body to measure the radiation loads that these astronauts are exposed to while orbiting the Earth from 270 miles above the surface. Moving on, European Space Agency astronaut Luca Parmitano is getting his hands on some science today inside of the Microgravity Science Glove Box. He's working on the InSpace 3 experiment, which looks to obtain data on fluids that contain particles that are able to change the physical properties of those fluids when responding to varying magnetic fields. On Earth, such materials that respond this way are typically used for vibration dampening systems that can be turned on and off. This type of technology has a lot of promise down here on Earth to improve the ability to design structures, namely things like bridges and buildings, to better withstand earthquake forces. So while this taking place on a very small scale on board the International Space Station has the implication for some very far-reaching effects down here on Earth. Aside from that experiment today, Luca will be joining with Karen Nyberg to gather some items up for disposal in the upcoming Cygnus demo flight to the International Space Station. That Cygnus vehicle scheduled to launch under a week away from today on September 17th and dock with the station on September 22nd. Be the first demonstration flight of the Orbital Sciences vehicle resupplying the International Space Station. You can see a photo of that vehicle here. Throughout the week, we've been hearing from a number of the teams here in Mission Control as they continue to prepare for that flight. We'll be hearing from one later this morning. And then meanwhile, on board the station, the 3rd and final crew member, NASA astronaut Karen Nyberg, has been tasked with some routine maintenance necessary for these crews on board the International Space Station. She's been working inside of the crew quarters, doing a little bit of house cleaning, taking the intake and exhaust ducts out and cleaning those out, and also the fan and airflow sensors. May seem kind of mundane, but those devices on board the station very critical for the health and safety of these astronauts to maintain a breathable atmosphere, moving expelled gas like carbon dioxide away from the astronauts inside the cabin, as that microgravity environment presents a very unique challenge to maintaining a breathable atmosphere. Aside from that work, Nyberg also gathering some items up for eventual disposal on Cygnus and relocating a few hardware items across the U.S. segment. But again, this is just the second full day of Expedition 37, as the crew continues to throw themselves back into a lot of science work and maintenance work on board the International Space Station.